Well, I would start by saying that I wouldn't consider privacy and security and convenience to be a trade-off. It's not a zero-sum game. It's important that users have the ability to use the digital services that are being provided to them, but they also need to have trust in the system that they're using, that the information will be secure and that laws are being complied with. So in terms of a trade-off, if you're subject to privacy laws, you can't really trade off on that one. So I think it's just important to try and build the interface with that privacy and security in at the beginning, and then it just becomes part of the user experience rather than adding to it later, then creating more complexities for people because their experiences will be different. So it's important to do it at the outset. If I'm speaking from I'll just speak from a public sector perspective since we're here today. But there needs to be good transparency. People need to be told what's happening with their information. And there's many different ways to do it. It's at the time that you're collecting the information, which is generally the requirements of privacy laws anyways. But it's also, announcing things that they're doing. Well, here's this great system that we're using. We're going to make it easier for you to access government records or your records. And here's the work that we're doing behind the scenes to protect your information. And I think that unfortunately, a lot of systems get rolled out and there is that lack of engagement. And I think that that's an area where we really need to start focusing on as we up the ante with digital technology. So we currently have privacy laws if we're talking about privacy, and privacy actually requires an adequate level of security to protect the information from a breach. So we already have the legal foundation. What we also need is the policy foundation. So there needs to be a policy foundation developed in government, using them as an example, to guide the legal authority to use information, make sure they have it, make sure that they've developed policies and they train their staff adequately so they understand what that looks like. Ethics is now becoming, the buzzword of the day. And, as I said on my presentation there, well, what is ethics? Ethics is only as good as the values of the society that it represents. So it's important to develop that ethical framework and actually ensure that all of that is built into the decision making. So until the laws evolve to catch up with what we need for technology and protections of privacy, we need to actually develop that from a governance perspective and make sure that it's rolled out within government and communicated to the sectors that are engaging with government for that work. So the status quo now is that government will need to look at its security infrastructure. It needs to assess whether it has the proper security in place as it begins to roll out this technology. It also needs to make sure it has adequate privacy management programs in place, policies, procedures, use of privacy mitigation, risk mitigation tools such as privacy impact assessments, and some ability to audit those systems. So if it has a good foundation, then it will be in a better position to implement the technologies. So I would say that there is work to do, not only in government, but the majority of the public sector and even some of the other sectors to try and build that foundation. So once the foundation is laid, then it's actually much easier to implement those technologies. So there is that work that needs to be done. Well, there are different aspects to that. So, of course, Government of Alberta is not one public body. It is separate public bodies, depending it's ministry related. So, first of all, you have to have authority to transfer the information. So you need to make sure that the law permits it. And then you need to look for adequate ways to communicate or transmit the information, which could be access to a system, limited access controlled with proper auditing, secure file transfer systems, depending on the type of transmission you're doing. And there needs to be information sharing agreements put in place so there is a foundation of understanding as to how this is going to go and who's going to be accountable for it. I think that the topics have been good. I'm excited to be hearing about what the people that I monitor are doing, so that's really useful for me. It's important to have these conversations, so this event gives us an opportunity to come together, my office included, and have conversations about what's happening and how can we work together to actually strengthen the system. So I think this has been a really good event so far. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day.